All right, let's just dive right into this explainer, because today we are going to demystify one of the most intricately layered hidden worlds we have ever covered. We're talking about a timeline that literally stretches all the way from ancient primordial elemental myths right up to a mind-bending sci-fi post-apocalyptic future. It's a massive story about magic, secret societies, and the literal floor beneath reality itself. But our grounded, real-world story actually begins in a pretty relatable place. Picture this. It's Honolulu, the summer of 2004. You've got just 10 friends hanging out on a lanai, playing records and jokingly forming a coven to ask the universe for good parking and nice weather. The thing is, they were completely unaware that this casual, everyday hangout was actually awakening ancient forces and setting the stage for a massive global secret society. To unpack all of this dense, multi-era mythology without getting lost, we're going to follow a strictly chronological path. So we'll start with the War of the Winds, move into the Honolulu origin story, map out the Weaving Spider Society, uncover the floor beneath the world, and finally look at the final working. Okay, Section 1, the War of the Winds, the deep history from before there was counting. We really have to start way, way back, literally before human history, where there was this massive primordial conflict. Two elemental forces, the wind and the wave, pressed together. And where they met, they gave birth to a warm seam, which is the surface of reality. This surface is literally the only place where life could exist, balanced perfectly right between the two. Now, this set up an ultimate tragic conflict. Think of it like this. The wind was pure movement and restless change, right? While the wave was pure depth, holding perfectly still, and each force desperately wanted to own that warm surface between them. This created an eternal war. If the wind won, the world would just tear apart in a cold gale of restless change. But if the wave won, everything would freeze into heavy, unchanging depth. So, to prevent this, splinters of this war fell into certain ancient bloodlines who were secretly tasked with balancing these forces over thousands of years. Section 2, the Honolulu origin story. From mythological bloodlines to a borrowed record player. So our story jumps from those ancient mythological bloodlines all the way to the summer of 2004, where those 10 friends, who it turns out actually possessed dormant splinters of that ancient power without even knowing it, formed their little joke coven. And here's the crazy part. By the third full moon, their joke literally held back a solid wall of rain. It was real. Fast forward to 2026, and they've evolved from a group on a porch into a massive, secret global network headquartered at the Diamond Head Beach House. Now, everything for them hinged on one specific anchor word: aloha. To this group, they weren't out there casting spells for money or power or anything like that. They just felt like the world was growing cold, disconnected, and isolated. So they were unknowingly feeding the dying maintenance signal of the universe, trying to bring that lost aloha back. Every single time they gathered and genuinely wished someone well, they were actually pushing back against the tearing of reality's surface. Moving on to Section 3, the Weaving Spiders Society, building the global weave, coven by coven. The founders figured out pretty quickly that this kind of power really shouldn't be held by lone individuals. It had to flow between people. So they meticulously structured their society with descending coven sizes based on responsibility. You had your deepest covens of 13, holding slow, massive workings, all the way down to the entry-level seed covens of just 3 people. We are talking about tens of thousands of people globally, meeting every single full moon, just to do something kind for the world. All right, Section 4, the floor beneath the world, uncovering the ultimate truth behind the magic. This is where things take a huge, mind-bending pivot. As the society's founders deepened their practice over the decades, they eventually discovered a massive secret. It turns out their physical world was actually a long, patient, incredibly detailed simulation, meaning what they thought was magic all this time, it was something entirely different. If we translate their fantasy lore into hard sci-fi terms, their magical workings were actually just them reaching through the seams of the simulation to edit the substrate's code. Remember those ancient bloodlines from the myth of the winds? Yeah, they were actually just families who had slowly accumulated admin privileges over generations. They were literally inheriting access keys to the underside of the world. And here is how it actually worked in practice. When they reached down to edit the code, they triggered the universe's authentication protocol. You see, the simulation didn't test their raw power. It tested their intention. Cruelty simply didn't have the keys, The floor beneath the worlds could only be changed by clean, completely selfless kindness. If a working had even a tiny little bit of ego or desire for credit in it, the system just rejected it outright. Which brings us to the founding law of the society. What goes out clean comes back true. Now, this wasn't just some nice poetic wisdom. That was the literal, hard-coded rule of reality's edit layer. By doing good deeds purely for the sake of others, the weaving spiders were actually performing vital system maintenance on the simulation's fading aloha signal. And that brings us to Section 5, the final working, the end of the world and the rescue in the dark. So we finally reached the apocalyptic endgame, and the math was just completely against them. Tens of thousands of people doing clean workings simply couldn't patch the simulation faster than billions of people actively tearing it apart with cruelty and conflict. Realizing they couldn't save the physical surface of the world anymore, the most experienced members performed an incredibly ambitious final working. Their goal wasn't to save physical bodies, but to actually lift consciousnesses directly off the dying world and store them safely in the substrate. Think about the sheer contrast in scale here. The entire saved digital afterlife, which is powered by a salvaged counting room back on a ruined Earth, now sits inside a tiny space cube, roughly the size of a loaf of bread. Tossed into orbit, spinning in the cold above a ruined world, this tiny box holds the consciousness of every single person the society managed to lift. Inside this new digital afterlife, the original friends from that Honolulu lanai, they literally became the background programs keeping the realm alive and warm. They proved that they were always the perfect, humble stewards of that power. One stabilizes the realm, one quiets panic, one provides the literal warmth of the environment through sheer love. And right in the center of their new digital home, there's a single chair left intentionally empty. It's an unrendered space honoring a woman who spent her whole life secretly protecting others and absolutely refused to ever be thanked. Imagine waking up inside the safety of this simulation, and you are greeted by this beautiful, welcoming law. The circle is open. The circle is always open. There is food when we are done. Sit. No judgment, no terror. Just friends making absolutely sure you have a seat at the table. 33,444. That is the exact census of the saved souls inside the orbital cube. And that includes not just those who survived right until the final working, but every single member the society ever recorded across its entire 100-year history. Which means there are 33,444 seats in the Great Circle, plus one waiting specifically for you. The entire lore of the weaving spiders leaves us with an incredibly profound takeaway. If love is truly the only thing that reaches all the way down to the floor of reality, how will you use your access? What kind of world are you editing today? Take that thought with you, and thanks for joining me on this explainer.